So, folks, Donald Trump didn't remember who Melissa Hortman was. And I'm going to be playing two clips here today because I really do believe that these two clips actually just shows you exactly who not only Trump is, but who MAGA is. Because I've had so many people reach out to me about their social media feed, and they're talking about how they're seeing more and more people talk about current events now in politics, and more people obviously talking about Charlie Kirk. People that had always stayed quiet on issues were now just there. My argument is they've always been there. They were there during the Black Lives Matter protest. They were turning Kyle Rittenhouse into a hero. So they've always been there. It's just that they're back now and they're louder than ever. But they're also silent when things happen, like children dying in school every day. They're silent on those. And they were silent on Melissa Hortman. They didn't care. There were lawmakers who made jokes out of that, jokes about that. They didn't care. Didn't call for anyone to be doxxed or fired or anything like that. But here we go. I want to play these clips back to back. Well, not back to back. I'll show you one, then we'll talk about it and talk about the next one. But I want to play you these two clips because this is a prime example of who MAGA really is. And I always say that the leadership starts at the top. And so here it is at the top, and it's trickled down to everyone in MAGA. Take a look.
In retrospect, given all of the moving ways that this White House has paid tribute to Charlie Kirk, right, do you think it would have been fitting to lower the flags to half staff when Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, was gunned down by an assassin as well?
I'm not familiar.
The Minnesota House Speaker, a Democrat, who was assassinated this summer.
Well, if the governor had asked me to do that, I would have done that. But the governor of Minnesota didn't ask me. I didn't. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I would have if somebody had asked me. People make requests for the lowering of flag, and oftentimes you have to say no because it would be a lot of lowering. The flag would never be up. Had the governor of Minnesota asked me to do that, I would have done that gladly.
He actually said out loud, "Who? I'm not familiar." And if you had have said that to any of his followers, they would have said the same thing. You want to know why? Because it was a Democrat and they did not care. They do not care when it's someone that happens on our side. And if you had shown them the clips of the people making fun of that and making jokes about that, they would have denied it, said that's not us. We would never do anything like that. You'll never hear them condemn it. You'll never call them out. But you'll never hear them call it out. But I just find it so insane that this guy would sit there and say, well, if the governor had asked me to, I would have. If Tim Walz had asked me, I would have done that. But here's what he had to say about Tim Walz at the time. He said that calling him would be a complete waste of time. Do y'all remember this?
Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. He anointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste time?
Yeah, it would have just been a waste of time because old Tim Walz, he's just so whacked out. And they want to talk about turning down the temperature. They want to talk about turning down the temperature. But in that moment, it was just so, I'll tell you the most disgusting part of all that to me was just how little they did not give a shit and expressed it. And I say that it starts at the top because it does. It starts with Donald Trump. And that attitude of, well, why would I call him? He's whacked out. Why would I waste my time? So I don't believe that he would have lowered the flags. How many of you, leave it in the comments if you think, how many of you thinks that he honestly would have lowered the flag for Melissa Hortman? This is the same guy that ordered it to go back up when we were still remembering Jimmy Carter. He could have used that moment, by the way. He didn't want it at half staff during his inauguration. But he could have used that as a moment to come together. He could have used that as a moment for unity. He could have said, you know what, folks, we're going to leave the flag right there for President Carter. Because President Carter was a good man, and while I might not have agreed with him politically, I'm going to come out here today at my inauguration, and we're going to talk about how this country needs to come together, and we're going to talk about how that we truly do need unity. And so we're going to start by showing respect to President Carter, and we're going to leave the flag right there to let everyone know that we can come together during these times and we can move forward as a country, and we can also mourn the passing of a former president. He had a chance to do that and he didn't do it. Why? Because that type of rhetoric would not resonate with his base. There's one thing that a lot of people on my side of the aisle has gotten wrong over the years. A lot of people on my side of the aisle are of the nature that maybe eventually MAGA will find someone who will just tone things down. Maybe eventually MAGA will find someone, maybe even J.D. Vance might be the guy that might, start trying to take a more reasonable approach. But we saw him hosting Charlie Kirk's podcast. He said there would be no unity. Trump says there will be no unity. They're saying there isn't a radical left. There's not a problem, or there's not a radical right, they say. The problem is only on the radical left. So they've had every chance possible to come together. They've had every chance possible to call for unity. They've had every chance possible to try to tone it down. And they've also had every chance possible to call out the people on their side. But they won't. And in a moment, when Melissa Hortman lost her life, her husband, the dog even, they couldn't tone it down. Instead, they called Tim Walz whacked out and said it would be a waste of time. And I thought back to growing up in church. And I wished I could go back on a time machine. I wished I had old Steve Urkel's time machine that I could go back and just go back there, walk into that church, and just play them clips of Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk without saying what political party or religion they were aligned to. I would love to see the look on that minister's face who's no longer with us and who taught us to be compassionate. That's the thing. When I was growing up under a Pentecostal minister, he used to teach us to be compassionate to people. And I guarantee you it wouldn't have mattered what kind of politician had have passed away in my hometown. If a local politician had have passed away, I promise you that minister would have walked to the altar, even if he didn't agree with him. And he would have said, hey, my heart goes out to his family, my condolences. And we really need to tone this stuff down. He would have did that back in the 80s. He would have did it back then. Ministers today, and there have been ministers who are calling it out, so I don't want to paint them all with the same brush, because there are good ministers out there who are calling this out and calling for unity and calling for us to turn it down. But a whole lot of them went to their pulpit and just stoked the fires harder and showed us just how truly heartless and one-sided that it truly is. They can have a Fox News host suggest that the homeless should be put down, that they should get forced lethal injection. And he was able to just come out and go, yeah, sorry, and keep moving. Meanwhile, an MSNBC host just told the truth about Charlie Kirk and got fired. And they're encouraging people to fire people who criticizes Charlie Kirk or just points out what he said. It's so sickening to me that this is now the world that we're in. And it's so sickening to me that we would have a president who could be so heartless as to say, who? I'm not familiar. But it just goes to show you, it starts at the top and trickles down. And if you'd have asked any of your friends who are MAGA, if you'd ask any of your family who is MAGA about Melissa Hortman, they would have said, who? I'm not familiar. And if you talk to them about all the senseless gun deaths and all the children that have passed away from gun violence, if you started naming those children's names, they would say, who? I'm not familiar. Because those people's death didn't fit their agenda. They're using Charlie Kirk's death as a moment to further their agenda. They're using his death as a moment to continue to shape a narrative of division. And if it wasn't Charlie and if it was someone else, Charlie would have been right there alongside them calling for the same stuff. So they're carrying on his legacy. I'll say that. They're carrying on what he stood for. I'll give them that much anyway. But yeah, that pretty much defines MAGA to me. Who? I'm not familiar. And then why would I reach out to them? That would be a waste of my time. That's who MAGA is, folks, and we can't ever forget it. I've had so many people say to me, well, Brando, a lot of people these days, their mask is coming off. No, their mask was always off. It's always been off. It was off back in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protest. It was off when they vilified and demonized and laughed and made fun of George Floyd. It was off when they were calling for a pardon of Derek Chauvin. It was off when they made excuses for Breonna Taylor being killed. It was off when they were making excuses for Jacob Blake being shot in the back 7 times at point blank range. It was off when they made Kyle Rittenhouse into a hero. It was off on January 6th when they were calling for Mike Pence to be hung for not doing the right thing in their mind. So it's always been off. It's just that they kind of got quiet for a while and decided to take it off again. But I do appreciate your all's support so much here on the channel, and we will continue to call these things out. We will continue to always be on the right side of history. We will always condemn political violence. It's never the answer. I do not condone anyone out there celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I think it's disgusting, but so far I've not seen anyone on our side doing that. I've just seen over on X them pulling up people that's got 1 follower or 2 followers and saying this is the radical left. And no, it's not us, and we're not radical, by the way. The things that we want are not radical in this world. But Donald Trump cannot start off one post. He can't wish everyone a Merry Christmas without somehow throwing the word radical left lunatics in there. So it starts at the top, and until Trump and Vance turns down the temperature, then this is the way things are going to stay.